All right, I'm Mary Pat McNulty, and I'm joined with Karen Kraft, and we really welcome this opportunity to talk to you a bit about clean regattas. Karen and I are each longtime members of SSA's Thistle Fleet, and for the past several years, we've been leaders in organizing most of our larger invitational regattas. And except during the pandemic, I think all of them have been clean regattas. Karen and I are also members of the Thistle Class Clean Class Committee, which aims to make the entire Thistle class a clean class. And this is a pilot program, and we are working closely with Sailors for the Sea. Each of us is available to talk with any of you or with anyone from your fleets about clean regattas, and our contact information is on the last slide. So just very quickly, I'm going to go over 5 steps to holding a clean regatta, and then Karen is going to touch briefly on best practices for clean regattas. So we've been participating in the Clean Regatta program through Sailors for the Sea. The program has established 20 best practices for clean regattas, and those best practices are organized into 5 general categories. And then there are 5 levels of certification, and your level of certification is going to depend on which and how many of the best practices you incorporate into your regatta. And the details are off to the right, and you can review them later. For 5 steps to holding a clean regatta, your first step would be to assemble a green team. And this will give you an idea of how many people will be working with you and their level of commitment. Then with your green team, review the 20 best practices and determine which practices you're going to focus on and how you plan to implement them at your regatta. For those of us here at SSA, you might want to look at the 2022 Oyster Roast report, because we were able to get platinum certification here at SSA. Third step, go off to the Sailors for the Sea website, register your regatta. They will ask you to indicate which of the best practices you intend to implement, and remember your login information because you're going to need to go back later. Step 4, go ahead, hold your regatta, enjoy it, and just incorporate the best practices into the regatta. After the regatta, go back to the Sailors for the Sea website and certify that you actually implemented the, or indicate which best practices you implemented at your regatta, and there is an opportunity to adjust which best practices you worked on. We suggest that you do this as soon as possible after the regatta so that people don't forget. And note that you do not have to submit any kind of a written report unless you're going for the platinum certification. For all the other levels of certification, you just go online and certify that you did in fact implement whichever the best practices are that you indicated up front or any additional. And so here are the links for what I just talked about. So the Sailors for the Sea, the various websites, and there's also a direct link to our last year's Oyster Roast report. So in the interest of time, I'm going to turn things over to Karen, who is going to go over Clean Regatta best practices, and then I'll be back with you for any discussion and questions. So now I'm going to stop sharing, and now it's Karen's turn.
All right, let's see if I can figure out how to screen share here. All right, let's see. Please move.
Yep, it looks good. I think we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so Mary Pat has already introduced the 20 Clean Regatta best practices, which are available on the Sailors for the Sea website. And once you register, you'll also have access to a Clean Regatta toolkit that provides ideas for many possible ways to achieve each best practice. And we're just going to scroll through these best practices so you can start getting a sense of what they are. And then we're going to talk about some actual best practices and how you might satisfy them at SSA. Okay, so best practice number 1, eliminate single-use water bottles and provide water refill stations. And for this one, it's as easy as requesting that participants bring reusable water bottles and then showing them where to fill those water bottles up. And at SSA, that's real easy because we have a water bottle chiller filler. So you can just put some signage, mention where it is, and you are good to go. All right.
Can I, at the risk of interrupting, Karen, also, and Barbara, you might want to pop here. Most race committees now are willing to carry the 5-gallon jugs of water with the pumps so that they can even refill on the water.
Cool.
Not all
I
of them
know.
are, but a lot of them are,
Right. And
especially in July and August.
Right. Yeah.
if any of you, just again, with the resource sharing, the Snipe Fleet has one with the big pump, and I believe the laser class does also. I think Scott might have had to hop off. I don't know that he can verify that, but we can share resources for that as well.
And that is super critical. Hydration is just incredibly important. So I really appreciate you mentioning that, Lisa, because it can be hard to carry enough water to really remain hydrated throughout the day, especially during the heat of the summer. Thank you. Okay, best practice number 2, eliminate plastic straws. And again, this is going to be an easy one because botanists will not be handing out plastic straws or stirrers this year. So for mixed drinks, folks could ask for no straw, a wooden stirrer, or a bamboo straw. Botanist doesn't have a good way to sanitize these straws. So if you're going to go with straws, participants should be invited to keep them for personal use, either at SSA or elsewhere. And if you're serving coffee, don't forget to offer wooden stirrers instead of plastic stirrers. You're serving coffee at breakfast. All right, so number 4, the wording has been changed just this year a little bit, but so skip bags or go reusable. And this can be thought of in different contexts. One is, okay, say you have registration materials or goodie bag items. Are you going to put them out, hand them out in a bag? We don't actually use bags for that purpose, but we do use reusable bags for regatta shopping. And then we also invite participants to use reusable bags when they're provisioning for the regatta. Okay, best practice number 5, award practical items or use a perpetual or upcycle trophy. So we've been awarding practical items since we joined the Clean Regatta program. And the Paramore Trophy was recently repurposed as a perpetual for this event. Let's see, best practice.
Karen, I think you accidentally skipped number 3, but again, it's an area where botanist is already set up to help do number 3. Isn't that correct?
Okay, so I think, I'm sorry. So what I should have said perhaps was that I'm going to focus on what seems to be like the really easy ones to achieve bronze level certification.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually just go through. I've picked out, you need 8 best practices for bronze. And so anyway, yeah, I'm just going to go with 8 that seem pretty easy to achieve at SSA.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, best practice number 6, publicize your sustainability efforts. So we have some low tech ways, like we fly the Sailors for the Sea flag at our Clean Regattas. And we post certificates from our past Clean Regatta events. And then we do also work to ensure that regatta articles and social media posts mention our Clean Regatta efforts. Okay, best practice number 10, organize a green team. Please, as a regatta organizer, do not try to accomplish all of the Clean Regatta tasks by yourself. So we rely on a core group of helpers But we also like to think of the larger group of participants as part of the green team, since their efforts are needed to run a successful clean regatta.
Karen, you need the next slide.
I'm sorry, what?
You need the next slide.
Okay, so I was going to go to best practice number 13. Can people see that?
No, we're still on the first slide. We're still on 1 through 9.
Okay. Hold on. So let me see. Maybe I need to. Okay, so maybe I need, I'm sorry, where did you see none of, were you only on one?
We were on
I guess it was 1 through 10, I think, or 1 through 9.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Okay, so I'm gonna start. So the last thing you saw was slide 9. Let's see.
just the number 9. There were like 2 sections of 1 through 5, and then there was the next section with 6 through 9. So it was all on one page, all on one slide.
So you're saying all you saw was, no, it didn't go back. Let me see. I do not know why it's not working. So you're saying all you were seeing was the text of the best practices?
The list.
The list. It was like a list. One.
Maybe Charlie can help me. Charlie?
While they're addressing that, Karen is focusing on what we thought were the quote easy best practices, and at SSA it should be fairly easy to achieve the bronze certification. But if anyone wants to go for a higher certification, again, Karen or I are more than willing to talk to you and help out in any way possible. But we thought we'd start with the easy ones first.
Right, which is great. And I know the state class has done that for a couple of years. And I was just surprised, again, with SSA's help with the infrastructure already, that,
Right.
that getting to that bronze was almost a no-brainer. So
Right. And even in the clean boating or green boating, it's fairly easy because SSA's power boats already have the relatively efficient power engines. I'm not an outboard motor person, but we already have the good ones.
right.
Mary
Okay.
Pat,
Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't understand why we're not, so are you saying?
there
Okay,
it is. There it is.
Now
Yep.
you're now you're 10 through 13 and then 14 through 17.
Yep.
okay, but how about this one?
Oh,
Yep.
look at that. Look at all those pretty pictures you have.
Yep.
Sorry you missed all
I
that.
Yeah.
don't know why. Okay, yeah, so that's, single-use water bottles. I was seeing that, so I apologize. I don't know why you weren't seeing it. Let's see if we can get the next one.
Hey, I know that person.
Okay, so I've already talked through these. You could just look at the pictures.
Yes,
So
thank you.
eliminate plastic straws. Use reusable bags for shopping. Ask folks to do that while provisioning. Use reusable, use practical trophies for awarding. Publicize their different ways. We do some old school stuff, and then we also try to make sure that it gets mentioned in articles.
Let me ask you a question. I think Barbara also brought it up in a chat, is so if we're going for the bronze, so we register that we're going for what, I'm just saying bronze because it's the easiest one. Can we, or are we encouraged to then use that Sailors for the Sea logo in our marketing and our, like, if we have a t-shirt or if we are doing social media posts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, let them know, let folks know. I mean,
Right.
the Thistle class even has, when you go to put an event on the web calendar, they now have a designation. You can designate that you're registering as a clean regatta.
Yeah, great.
Sailors for the Sea definitely wants people to know. So thank you for asking that question. All right, let's see. Yeah, so organize a green team. Don't try to do it all yourself. Okay, so I think this is where I was. Can folks see number 13, use paperless event management?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Again, at SSA, it's easy to achieve with online registration. And then we also go a step further by letting participants know ahead that if they want a printed SI, for example, they need to print it and bring it with them. Because not everyone wants printed SIs, so we don't want to waste the paper. Also, we rely on one printed copy of the results, which we post on the official notice board rather than printing out a bunch of copies for individuals, which is how it used to be done years ago. And then, of course, the results are also posted online. Okay, best practice number 15, promote alternative transportation. SSA has a bike rack, which we advertise, and then we also encourage carpooling. Number 19, prevent toxins from entering the water. SSA has created oil spill kits that are conveniently located by each hoist. And then some additional steps that we take, we request that people for washdowns use water only or a special non-toxic boat soap. And also, if they're going to use sunscreen, which you should, make sure that it's reef-safe sunscreen. All right, so you can get to bronze different ways. You need to do 8 of the best practices. And you know what SSA has to offer, those are really pretty simple ways to achieve bronze certification and kind of get a good start on clean regattas. All right, now we've been doing this since 2017. So we also, we try to go beyond bronze, and there's some other favorite best practices that we like to include. So number 17, for example, offer vegetarian or vegan alternatives. So if it's a small regatta and you're working with botanis, number 17 you have covered, because Angel makes delicious and really quite inspired vegetarian food. And then for a larger regatta, like the oyster roast, where we want a buffet and a sit-down dinner and all, well, not sit down, but buffet. So we're working with an outside caterer. And then what we do is we'll augment the catered food with some vegetarian dishes, but in large enough volumes that everyone can enjoy. And like the baked beans, you want baked beans, it's plant-based. Okay, so number 18, use eco-smart race management techniques. So PROs are typically happy to help with this best practice. Last year, working with Steve Podlick, we came up with a list of best management practices that came up, that are really, easy enough to do at SSA. And they're pretty simple. Things like have the RC boats turn off their engines while they're anchored, use reduced speeds to increase fuel efficiency, include a rib, have familiarity with those spill cleanup kits that we saw, don't require bow stickers. And then, PRO can encourage RC members to use reusable water bottles and drinking glasses. And what's next? Maybe it is Marquette pots, which the Thistle class just used at our Thistle Midwinter's East, and they were pretty cool. Okay, so best practice number 3, serve food with plastic-free dinnerware. And this is one that we've been working on, since we started in 2017. It's a bit of a challenge, especially given the dishwashing limitations at SSA. But we feel that it's important enough that over the years, we've worked to acquire metal silverware, canning jar glasses, reusable mugs. They get stored in the craft basement, and they get the craft dishwasher. And that it's not as easy as at some of the venues that we visit, but it's doable. And if other fleets are interested in working on this best practice, there is enough metal silverware in the SSA kitchenette to handle a small regatta. And Kathy indicated that SSA could also provide a attic storage space if, for example, maybe a bunch of fleets are interested and want to gather supplies. and then store them in the attic. And a fleet could, could borrow some of those items for a regatta, clean them, take them back. Kind of similar to the way that SSA lets fleets borrow the SSA fabric tablecloths if they return them laundered. And by doing that, then you can eliminate, like plastic tablecloths or, yeah. All right, and then the last best practice I'm going to touch on is number 12, divert food waste from the landfill. Now, this can be really pretty simple. If your fleet has someone who's into gardening and they have a compost pile, it can be as simple as you set out 5-gallon buckets to collect the food waste, and then the gardener takes it home at the end of the event. Until last year, that's what we were doing. We were using those 5-gallon buckets and the food waste went home to the crap compost pile. But last year, the opportunity arose to compost both food waste and uncoated food-associated paper. And that was either through an Anne Arundel County recycling program, or in our case, Bill Lawson's wife, Colette, took our compost to Langton Green Farm, where she volunteers. So we were real happy to be able to, not just food waste this time, but actually, we purchased compostable plates, but they can just be uncoated and, kept a lot of stuff out of the landfill. All right, so the stretch that we decided it was time for us to make last year was to go for platinum. And that requires documentation of satisfactory achievement of at least 19 of those 20 Clean Regatta best practices. So we ended up addressing some best practices we had thought we couldn't take on. And it also requires a lot of photographic documentation. So most of the photos I've shown were drawn from that report, which can be viewed as Mary Pat indicated. Sailors for the Sea has an actual library of these reports, so you can look at it there. And as a side note, I'll just say that this was the only certified platinum level Clean Regatta for the Thistle class in 2022. So Thistle Fleet 34 is helping to put SSA on the Clean Regatta map. So, all right, so I've only touched on 13 of the best practices today, and you can take a look at the full report to get some ideas for those other best practices. And talking to Kathy today, it sounded like, well, maybe SSA can have a Clean Regatta tab on its website that we can, gather all this information and make it available for folks who are interested in becoming involved in Clean Regattas.
Yeah, that is fantastic, because I did see Martin in the chat has put he can, that Botanist is happy to at least help support items 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 17.
Okay, cool. All right, so we appreciate your attention and the opportunity to make this, to present, and we're happy to entertain any questions or comments.